Welcome to Kitchen Chat. This is where we sample the talents of the most notorious chefs, home cooks, foodies, and celebrities that sizzle. Get ready for a culinary journey that you won't find anywhere else. Here's the host of Kitchen Chat, Margaret McSweeney.
Hello, dear foodie friends, and welcome to Kitchen Chat. I'm your host, Margaret McSweeney, and I am so glad you're joining me for today's very special show. As we all know here on Kitchen Chat, we get to taste the world from our own kitchens, and it's becoming even more available and prevalent these days, thanks to people such as our next guest, John Robert Sutton. He is known as the Indiana Jones of food. He's literally traveled to over 120 countries, 124 countries, sourcing what is next and what you will sample in your kitchen and in restaurants. I am just so thrilled. Thank you so much, John, for being on Kitchen Chat.
Margaret, thank you so much for having me. I just feel the enthusiasm here, and I can't wait to have this incredible conversation.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. Congratulations on your new podcast.
Really
Listeners, I'll have
that.
a link to it on Kurtco Media. He has the new podcast called Foods That Matter, and some fascinating discussions, and we'll touch upon that. But before we begin your incredible international journeys, I want to start at home. What is your favorite childhood taste memory, John? And did that influence at all this incredible journey in food that you continue?
Yeah, you know what? It did. I mean, I look at one of my neighbors who worked in Beverly Hills growing up, and I was the youngest of 6 kids, and he would bring things back from the premier market in Beverly Hills, which at that time was so far advanced. So to get the best strawberries and the best fruits and the most interesting breads, and to be able to taste that and have that shared, showed me that there was so much more outside of just your average grocery store with a mother with 6 children would go and have to shop. So that, quote, fancy food was introduced to me at a young age, which made me realize, wow, there's such a vast expanse out there.
Absolutely. Tasting the world for sure. And today, dear foodie friends, you might be shocked by some of the things that this food archaeologist has uncovered, but it's good to know the truth, and it will take us all on a wonderful journey. We're also going to talk about trends as well. But first of all, John, can you please share with our foodie friends what was very shocking to learn about the tomato?
Well, yeah, I mean, people think, oh, Italians and tomato sauce and all of that. No, the Mayans were making tomato paste way before the Italians did, because the first time a tomato was ever discovered or, basically shown to the Western world was on one of Columbus's voyage, when he was in the area of Costa Rica and a canoe paddled up and gave him his gift of this tomato plant. And then he brought it back to the court of Isabella, because it's like, imagine this beautiful plant with these red Christmas bulby things on them. That was beautiful. And then people figured out, wait a minute, this tastes good. And then at that time, Spain, had Naples as part of its kingdom. So tomatoes and tomato sauce started growing around Mount Etna. And then from there, the rest of history, the Italians kind of adopted that. Yes, but tomatoes are genetically from, the Costa Rica, Central America side of our world. Over here.
That is incredible. But I love how they became pollinated, of course, over in Italy. So that is, they originated there, but through international travel, just as you do. I guess you are a pollinator as well, John, in terms of what you are bringing and discovering and everything. And speaking about pollinators, I think it's a very important discussion that we have about honeybees. Foodie friends, you might have seen my post recently. I had no idea we had 25,000 Italian honeybees in the eaves of our roof. John, it was incredible.
Oh,
We had a
wow.
beekeeper come by, and
Wow.
it took all day to remove them, to relocate them, I'm excited to say, to a beekeeper's farm. So it's very exciting. 55 pounds of honey they removed as well. I know, it
Wow.
was incredible from our attic, essentially. So
Did you get to
I
keep
think,
the honey?
they asked, and I'm not adventurous as you are. I think you probably would have taken it. And I guess they repurpose it to feed the bees to get them into their next hive and home. And they're happily settled in a state park down the road. So it's very,
Wow.
very exciting. But can you share with us throughout all of your travels? Let's talk about bees, honey, and the importance thereof.
Yeah, what's interesting is that one of the most amazing historical areas of honey in the world was Knossos, which was on the island of Crete. And that was at that time, if you remember, the sugar had not, the sweet that we get from sugar was not really understood yet. So it was the honey from the honeybee that was the sweet of the day. And so Knossos built its incredible wealth on the honeybee. Now, that bee got so much of its honey around the local area of present day Crete. And it's just an incredible historical fact that flags used to fly on galleons from Rome that would be sent there to pick up jars and jars of this incredible honey from the thyme plant. So thyme and the flower from the herb thyme is the sole point where that bee got that honey. And that's why it just tasted the best of anywhere in all of the Greek and Roman Empire in history. They said that honey tasted the best. That's amazing. Now, in Altai in Russia, in Siberia, there is the honeybee that only gets their flower from the eucalyptus tree. So when the eucalyptus tree is flowering, the honeybee is only getting its pollen from that type of flower. So when you're eating this incredible eucalyptus honey, you're just feeling like, whoa, like this big eucalyptus euphoria coming specifically from that type of honey. And, my preference in honey comes from Greece. I just think that is such a delicious historical flavor. And you really start digging down into it, and it's just an incredible history of Greek honey that more or less it's poured on top of the Greek yogurt as as a breakfast dish. And of course, Greek yogurt does not have any sugar in it. We added sugar in it here, to make it more, tasteful. But real Greek yogurt is really devoid of sugar. So drizzling that honey, which is very good for you, by the way, is what I like. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Are you seeing any other unique uses of honey trending out in the world in terms of with food?
I am. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it as a natural adhesive, a natural binder to certain bars out there. So to be able to bind things together, different cereals. I've seen it. I've seen honey binding sunflower seeds together to make an all natural sunflower seed bar. And that binding agent is honey. And they're able to do it in a way where they've reduced the chemical amount to be involved in that, where it's becoming more and more natural through heat and through cold temperature adjustments in certain factories. That I think it's just going to be a great thing. Also, it's being used in certain types of chocolate making instead of sugar that is not natural. They're using honey in ways of, heating it up to a certain temperature, putting chocolate in, and having that honey chocolate mix, which is so delicious. Those are kind of the two really interesting things I've seen.
Amazing. And that does tie in, of course, to plant-based trends. Let's dig deeper into that with the food archaeologist, no pun intended
Mhm.
here. So, what are you seeing in terms of the plant-based um, trends? You had mentioned in a recent podcast, and I'll make sure you have the link to that, dear foodie friends, about sprouted nuts. What are sprouted nuts?
Essentially, a sprouted nut is just, a nut that you've basically soaked in water for a little bit of time, and then it's begun to sprout. And so then you take it out of there, and then that sprouted nut actually releases an enormous amount of more nutrients and minerals, and quite frankly, things we still scientifically do not understand. So releasing that intimate, power of a seed, growing, and then being able to eat that, there's so many more positive externalities out of that. So when looking toward substituting like a beef jerky or substituting something that you would be looking at, sprouted nuts is really a great alternative thing for that. So are chickpeas. I'm seeing a lot of people actually, putting chickpeas in olive oil and putting them in the oven at 200 degrees for a period of time, and then drying them out and just having these delicious olive oil, salt and pepper infused chickpeas with a little bit of rosemary on top is something you can make, and something that's a great substitute from some of the more, oily and more things out there. Just a better healthy choice that you could do yourself. That's, plant-based.
Wow, I love that. And you mentioned a very important word, and that is rosemary. I heard on one of your podcasts, so once again, I'll send a link to that, about the increasing important role that rosemary is playing in terms of trends within wellness. Can you share with us about that and how it impacts beverages?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a town in Italy called Acciaroli. It's south of Sorrento. And Acciaroli, they did a study between UCSD and La Sapienza University on the fact that there are more people there over 100 years old, active, working, moving around than anywhere else in the world. And why is that? They say one of the big reasons is the amount of rosemary that is consumed by everybody. I mean, they put rosemary on their eggs, rosemary on their meat. There's rosemary growing everywhere. In fact, when I went to the market and said, hey, can I buy some rosemary? They looked at me and they laughed. They said, what? Just go to the hills over there and pick it. It's all growing wild. But one of the things everyone was really doing, which I thought was unique, is when the fishermen were going out, in all of their water bottles, they had sprigs of rosemary everywhere, sprigs of rosemary. So taking the rosemary, infusing it in your drinking water, they know that there is a chemical that's in the sap, in the leaves of that rosemary, that is an incredible probiotic for your body, that really gets rid of bad bacteria and really infuses into your blood certain things. Again, we don't truly know, but it's an amazing beneficial thing for one's health. And you're starting to see rosemary infused water now, and you're going to see it really begin to take off. It's most certainly a trend because it kind of grows, you just stick it in the ground and it grows, and just pick off a sprig of it, put it in your water bottle overnight, let it all seep in and have a nice drink. And hey, no harm, no foul. Feel good.
Amazing. So I'm sure we'll see this at spas more and more with rosemary. Yes.
Yeah, it's just so good, and anti-inflammatory. There's so many things that studies have actually proven and shown. So I think it's unique. Give it a shot.
I am. Absolutely. We're learning so much, foodie friends. This is exciting. Another thing, and forgive me, I cannot remember the name of it. It was something about, oh goodness, because it's not yet released yet. It's like a sea thorn or something.
Yes. So it's sea buckthorn, actually. And,
yes, that was it.
You see it more in Europe, like in Northern Europe, and you see it in Siberia and Mongolia and parts of China, and it is a bright orange berry. Think of a blueberry, a small blueberry, but imagine that being bright orange. And it's just one of the highest concentrations of natural vitamin C on the face of the earth because it grows in intense weather conditions. And so in the wintertime, it's below zero, sometimes 30, 40 degrees below for 4 or 5 months on end. It has such a short time frame for the sun to hit it. So 2 months, you're getting the powerful rays of the sun. It's absorbing all of that. This berry is grown. It's called sea buckthorn. And you're seeing teas out of it. You're seeing a lot in creams because of the high vitamin C, natural vitamin C. There's a lot of creams and facial applications for it. It's great with teas. It's very good as a boost, as a vitamin boost. At some of the juice bars, you see different vitamin boosts. And,
Yes.
I'm working with a company right now, bringing it in. There's just some political challenges that I hope we can overcome and allow people to really experience, incredible probiotic food again. And that's the sea buckthorn. And it's powerful vitamin C antioxidant form. Yeah.
I
Exciting.
love this sea buckthorn. And you mentioned you're going to be seeing it more in teas. I am
Yes,
an afternoon tea enthusiast. And how does it alter the taste? Is it like a citrus taste, or
it
how would
is.
you describe it?
If you bite the berry, it's very bitter. And some people cut it with apple juice. Some people cut it with honey. And in a tea, it's perfect to balance the bitterness of the sea buckthorn and the mellowness of the tea. And some put mint, some put the full loose leaf tea on there, the green tea, and it just infuses just this amazing balance of flavor. Really.
Oh,
You'll see it a lot in parts of the world, mostly in Russia, where it's bright orange. The only thing is you got to watch sometimes the sugar content can be a little high because of the fact it's so bitter. But if you cut it with certain natural things, it really mellows out really well. But hey, if you want your sugar in there, you're in for a whole nother dimension. You'll never stop drinking what's called oblepicha, that type of tea. Yeah, I love it.
oh, that sounds, and how do you spell that? The public, could you say what you
Oh,
said again?
that's how they say it in Russian. In English, it's sea buckthorn. Sea buckthorn.
Okay.
And I know the Latte Hotel. I was speaking with the general manager, and I told him, would you please get it going at the new latte that they're putting in New York City for everyone to
Oh.
be exposed to this? So I hope that happens. Yeah. Stay tuned.
Oh, I love that. You are the
Let's go.
pollinator. You are
Let's go.
bringing
Let's go to New York and
things up
have
here.
afternoon tea.
I would love that. Absolutely. Well, speaking of berries, we have to talk about Brazil. And foodie friends, I don't know if many of you know this, but I lived in Brazil for over 6 months during graduate school. I was doing an internship
Awesome.
in Rio.
Fantastic.
It was
Wow.
wonderful. And even way back then, I was introduced to the acai berry and also guaraná and the bachita, where it was the basically smoothies before we really had smoothies here. What trends in food are you seeing from Brazil?
Brazil has where the cashew was born and
Mm.
Cashew, and that is in the north of Brazil is where genetically it came from. If you say that to people from India, those might be a little fighting words, because they love their cashews, but the Portuguese brought it from Brazil and sailed it over into Goa. But you're seeing the cashew apple, which is this fruit that the cashew nut, it's really a seed, actually. It's not a nut, it's a seed. And that sits on top of this apple. And you're seeing trends of this apple being used as a fruit for ice cream, for flavoring, for new beverage drinks, for new alcohol drinks. Yeah, they're beginning to use the cashew apple, that piece of fruit where the cashew seed or nut sticks up on top of. So I found that fascinating, and it's delicious. I'm just surprised we've never seen it before.
Incredible. A cashew apple is what it's called.
Yeah, it's an apple that's the fruit that the seed or the nut that you know crescent shaped thing sits on top of a piece of fruit that people eat. It ripens and you eat, and people cut it up, and it's delicious. We don't see it here, and it's, when you see a picture of it, it's absolutely beautiful. It looks like an apple, and it's colorful and different colors, and it's sweet, and it has a really, really unique taste. And so, you have a drink down there and they'll cut it up. Like we will put a lime or an orange, that looks really nice on your cocktail. They do that with the cashew apple, with cachaça and all sorts of different, the caipirinhas. And
I was about to say, is this going to replace the caipirinha at Ipanema Beach?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know. And that cashew apple, they're making caipirinhas with the cashew apple. Oh, it's so good. Too good.
Wow. And the flavor profile, how would you describe that?
I'd say it's a cross between a peach and an apple. I really do. It doesn't last that long. There's a very short period of ripening, and it is a bit of a challenge to move that quickly over. I think that's one of the reasons we don't see it. Plus, they're really grown not for that. They're grown for the cashew nut or seed, really. And so that's taken off and discarded. But you're slowly seeing more and more of that in markets, in stores, in actual, juices and flavorings and products now. So get ready.
Amazing. And it's another great example of sustainability, where that could have been, I guess, considered like a weed. They really wanted the nut and not the fruit. And now it's being repurposed. That's great.
Correct. And what's amazing about a cashew nut is that a whole nut that hasn't been broken, there isn't a machine. They're so delicate. There isn't a machine to remove the membrane off of that to expose the nut. And that means that every single one you see, if it's a whole one, has been done by hand. That's why they're so expensive. All the ones that are broken are because a machine had done it. So, I really have a soft spot in my heart for all those people that are taking individually those off of there. Yes.
Oh, amazing. So let's continue traveling the world as we chat, and with a seagull over your shoulder. I love the ambience of that on cue. We're taking flight too soon.
It isn't lunch yet. Hold on.
They know that they are at the foodie place when they visit you. But let's travel to France. You, in a recent podcast, talked about wild French cheeses. Can you share with us about this trend?
Yeah, well, in the US, most of our cheese is dead. I mean, it's been pasteurized. There's nothing living in there. So we tend to see cheese totally different than the French do. So, for instance, we're always serving cheese before the meal. In France, that's just unheard of. Right. You eat cheese after. And that's kind of like a second bacterial thing eating the food as well as you. So all of that living bacteria in blue cheese and in camembert, you eat that after dinner and it goes into your system and it's attacking the food and the bacteria as well as you are. And that's why they say a lot of French are thin, because of this cheese consumption that's a living culture after the meal, not our cheese consumption, which is dead cheese with nothing live in there that we're just eating before. So I thought, I didn't know that. And that was a big revelation to me, which is a shame now, because when I'm back here, I'm eating cheese before the meal, and I'm wondering, let me just keep quiet. None of my business. But that I thought I'd share that with the podcast and with you. Very
Yes,
interesting.
I love that. Well, maybe the cheese before dinner can be a prebiotic.
I like it. You're right. You're so right. Yeah.
Still has purpose. I loved also hearing in one of your podcasts about the best caviar in the world. Can you share with us about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, being in Ostrahan, which is really where the giant river sturgeon of the Volga came out into the Caspian Sea. So it has hundreds and hundreds of years of production down there.
Right.
And so it's all natural and wild. And the governments of the Caspian region have really been taking great pains of cleaning up the rivers, cleaning up, the oil production, and really looking at when the best time is to get the sturgeon and not just kill it and take the eggs out, which is caviar, but actually surgically remove it, farm it, and put it back. Now, it's being farmed all over the world, right? So you're seeing caviar now farmed everywhere. I just like the caviar from the Ostrahan region because they are fish that for some reason have not been able to be taken out of that environment and reproduced in a farm. So sure, there's a lot of different types of caviar. And this type of caviar, which is there, is just so delicious and so creamy. My other favorite type of caviar is from Kalix. It's a city in northern Sweden, and it's called Kalix caviar. It's served at the Nobel Prize dinner. Okay.
Wow.
and it's incredible. And it's a small golden egg from a mullet that is from the cold sea that comes in, and it spawns where these two rivers meet in the Kalix Bay area. Now, what's so interesting about that? There are trace amounts of gold in one river and trace amounts of silver in the other. And those two rivers meet, and the fish are all been over there, for hundreds, if not millions of years. And you get this incredible golden caviar from Sweden called Kalix. And it's really one of their only, PODs, or one of their only marks. Like champagne can only be from Champagne. Tequila can only be tequila. Kalix caviar can only be from Kalix, Sweden. It's the best.
I love that.
Oh.
Well, it sounds like it should be named Olympic because you've got the medals in there. So
yeah, I like that. Yeah.
That's important. Another very important thing to you, and that involves spices. And a shout out to Watkins.
Watkins is the best. They're legitimate too. They're an incredible company. Yes.
Great. Tell us about spices, trends in spices, and a little bit about Watkins, if you'd like.
Yeah, when you look at spices, so many you really don't know where they come from. And when you actually turn around the bottle, you got to be careful, because spices can bring a lot of non-organic elements with you. Watkins takes great pains to actually go around the world and find the organic sources, and they're pretty tough. I mean, because you can go and if it's not organic, you could have it tested and you'll be in big trouble. So they have a really great sourcing department that does this. And trends I see in different spices is za'atar. So za'atar is a Middle Eastern spice, and you're seeing that on flatbreads. You're seeing za'atar sprinkled on eggs. I just love za'atar. I was just in Kuwait 4 days ago, and I noticed that they had this incredible fish market, one of the biggest, largest fish markets I've seen in the Gulf. And they had giant corbina, and they were roasting the corbina like a chicken over coals and sprinkling fresh za'atar and lemon over this corbina fish. It was the most delicious thing I've seen. And so I would start looking at za'atar as a spice
Okay.
just to put over some olive oil and bread to start. It's really, really delicious. And then some of the other unique trends I see are spices out of Sri Lanka.
Hmm.
More and more you're seeing the accessibility to star anise. Okay.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
love star anise. I mean, that is just for everything. You could put that in an old fashioned, right? Or you
Mm.
could put that on a steak. Instead of a pepper sauce, try a star anise sauce and it will really change. It will really change. You'll have fun. Your brain will have a good time. It'll have something new. It'll be a joy, Star anise, try it
Yes.
out.
Oh, so many great things. We'll make sure we have a link to Watkins. You recommend them with the spices and for
I
our
do.
foodie
And
friends here.
yeah, and Foods That Matter, the show that I'm doing, we had the actual CEO came on. He took out his time to come and talk to us,
Oh,
which I think is incredible. I mean, they're very busy. They have a large footprint. And I thought that was very gentlemanly to take his time and sit down with little old me and have a good discussion
oh.
about spices in the world.
I love that. That's important because we have to have spice in life.
That's right.
Absolutely. Very important. What do you see beverage wise that is really surprising you with trends? I know we talked about that great cashew apple, but what else are you seeing in terms of the actual beverages?
I'm seeing a lot of beverages with actual tea in them,
Oh,
I'm seeing a lot of teas like green tea and black tea that are infused with different flavors that are more and more coming onto the marketplace. I think people are looking for a delicious alternative toward more sugar forward drinks that are out there.
hmm.
And people can just relate to the word tea. They know what it is. I mean, we all know what iced tea is, but
Yes.
now to have those flavored teas come out that are put into different beverages, I see quite a bit now. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, in one of your podcasts, you mentioned about the special flour. Was it called tortilla? What was the name of the flour that is being used in tea that you're seeing?
Yeah. Okay. So it's a red, um, oh, yeah, it's,
It's okay. We can
there's
edit
probably,
this out. No worries. Sorry, I
yeah,
didn't mean to,
no,
but I
but
thought
it's
that
on
was so interesting. It was
it's,
on that travel that
okay,
matters.
yes. Okay. So that is a hibiscus flower and it is a
Ah,
red hibiscus flower that you pick and you dry it. All right. And then you put it in water and boil it and all of the red comes out. And then
ooh.
you mix a little bit of sweetener with it and you mix water with it and it becomes a drink called Jamaica. And it's
Mm.
you go like you have iced tea here. Every restaurant in Mexico has a beverage called Jamaica. And you can go to your local store and get the Jamaica flowers, which is hibiscus flowers, the red flowers,
Wow.
boil it, and then strain the flowers out of there. Now you have your tea and then add water and add, sweetener to it. And that's called Jamaica. It's very good for your stomach. It's incredibly good for digestion. And it
Mm.
really is a great beverage to drink, in the afternoon. If you're really hot, it just has that cooling effect for your body that's exceptional. And I love that drink. I am surprised that I think in our lifetime, we will see hibiscus or Jamaica in so many more restaurants in the US than we do today. I just don't know why it hasn't caught on more. If I was hot and humid and had my choice between iced tea or Jamaica, Jamaica hands down.
Amazing. So something definitely for us all to be on the lookout for at restaurants, but also bring it home because it's all about tasting the world from our countertops as well as in restaurants too, to be celebrated. What are some items out there you feel like have not yet been discovered here in the US, but will be here soon?
Boy, that's an interesting, I mean, we had gone over some of those now. Um, let's see. Um, there's a lot of different discoveries that are in China. So some of these things, everything pickled, like
Ah,
people see sauerkraut, right, as something that's pickled. But get
right.
ready, and of course, cucumbers that are pickled, but get ready for many more pickled things because pickled, even pickled tomatoes,
Ah,
um, pickled, um, pickled, um, the crunchy, gosh, the celery, I think
yeah.
there's so many different things that you can pickle. And in China, there's like 100 things that I saw that were all pickled, and you could put on a sandwich or put on a taco, and it's just so very, very good for you. Um, Pickled Brussels sprouts, a
Oh,
pickled sprouts, so many different unique things that vegetables, carrots, so many things can be pickled because basically it's the use of vinegar and some
hmm.
sugars, and over time, it slightly, uh, you know, slightly disintegrates in there. And then you have these amazing kimchi is something that's pickled. That's
Yeah.
the spicy, cabbage from the Koreas. And
Hmm.
so you're going to see a lot more of these coming in, and as one should, because it's very, very healthy for you. It is a longevity, um,
Hmm.
part of the longevity diet.
Wow. John, this has been so insightful. I'm sure the foodie friends will agree. Thank you for sharing with us the trends, the taste, and your travels today here on Kitchen Chat.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And you and I, it would be fun to go on a trip together.
Yes,
So,
we have to.
and you know what? We'll bring your entire audience with us wherever we go.
Absolutely. That will be so much fun. I cannot wait to further share all of your travels. So, foodie friends, I'll provide the link to Foods That Matter, a new podcast on Kurtco Media hosted by John Robert Sutton, and also some of the pictures. I'll try to find pictures of some of the great items you had mentioned today. But thank you, John, and thank you, dear foodie friends, for joining me on this very special journey. And always remember to take a moment and savor the day.